Hi, I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this cute applique snail. This is the current pattern in the Funny Faces Quilt Block of the Month Club. So when I say current, it is now March 1st, 2022, and this is the pattern that will be exclusive to the club for the entire month of March. And then sometime the end of April, it'll be available in the regular shop at shinyhappyworld.com if you're not interested in joining the club and just want to pick up this particular pattern instead of a new pattern every month. So here's how to make it. All right, here's how we're going to put this snail together. We're going to start with the snail body. And we're going to place him so that the flat part of his body is running parallel with the bottom of the block. You don't want to put this right on the edge because you're going to lose some of that in seam allowance, and you don't want to cut into that. On this one, unlike a lot of my patterns, this one you see the entire body. He's not popping into, he's not photobombing the block. He's just centered in here. So that is pretty well centered, and we've got that bottom line. You do want it to be still shifted toward the bottom of the block so it doesn't look like he's floating. You want to anchor him. If I were drawing a picture, I would put a little shadow under him, but on an applique block, that just feels a little ridiculous. So the next thing we're going to do is put his antenna on here. So he's got two little squidgy antenna, and I'm going to start with the smaller of the two, because I have a nice clear placement. That is going to sit right on that mark that I transferred from the body pattern. And then the taller antenna is going to slip behind that one. And I've got a clear placement mark for that one as well. So I need to put it behind this one where that tips up, and I need to, once I cover this line on the antenna, I know I've got it buried enough that it's going to be securely positioned behind there. All right, oops, I just shifted that. So I'm gonna have another tutorial. I just recently purchased a light box that will allow you to do this without having to transfer these markings, and it'll make the lining up of things much, much easier. But that's gonna be in a separate video. I don't want to assume that people have specialized equipment, although I was surprised to find that light boxes are no longer very expensive items. So I just put his eye in place. Now this eye is small. It's not too small to outline. I'll be doing some outline stitching on it, and I'll show you that it is possible, but it is small. And if you want to not do that outline, have to outline around it, there are alternatives to that. There's fabric markers and fabric paints and hand stitching and lots of different alternatives, and the pattern will have more information about that. So next up, I peeled the backing off of this big shell piece, but what I actually need to place first is the kind of rim of the shell, just so I know where to position the larger shell piece. So this, I know, I have a marking that I transferred here that I need to lay this down, and once I get it laid down so that it covers that marking, I know I've got it in the right spot. And again, this is going to be made much easier with that light box. So now I'm going to slide this shell underneath that rim, and then we're going to work consecutively a little bit smaller. So these are now just going to sit right on top of the rest, so no more slipping underneath other things. So this one, you can see the line of what it needs to cover. There we go. And now I've got the next smallest. And this one also has a line showing here that needs to be covered up. And once I get it covered, I know I've got enough overlap. And one more itty bitty piece. And this one covers up that little bit. So I'm going to take this over to the ironing board, fuse everything in place, and then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, do all of the outline stitching, and then I will bring it back here and show you the finished snail. So that's it. Here is the finished snail block, all outlined and stitched down and ready to trim. It has not yet been trimmed down to size. But I wanted to talk about the fabric because when I forget to talk about the fabric, I get a bunch of people asking me about the fabric. So this uses two of my fabric collections that are available on Spoonflower. The background block, which does have the quilting lines actually printed on it, which makes it super easy to do, is part of the Gemstones collection. This is the amethyst and it's the darkest. So I have these background blocks available as pre-printed panels where you'll get multiple blocks in the same color family. So this is the Gemstones, the darkest shades of the Gemstones blocks. And this is particularly is amethyst. All of the colors that you see used in the snail here are in the Animal Kingdom collection. So these are the Animal Kingdom blenders, which are all just tone-on-tone prints available in the colors that you would need to make realistic looking animals. So this is my more realistic looking snail, but let me show you a couple more options. This is a much more colorful snail, and it is still sort of realistic because sometimes you do see snails in this bright green color. I've got some, we get progressively more fantastic as the colors go on. So this is kind of the reverse colors where the previous one was Gemstones in the background and Animal Kingdom for the applique. This one uses an Animal Kingdom solid from the background, and it uses colors, blenders from the Gemstones collection on the foreground, on the applique. So the snail itself is the peridot shades, and the shell is different tourmaline shades. And one of the things that I really have been enjoying about using my own fabric is that I can have multiple shades of the same color family. So this is all different prints and different shades in that tourmaline group, and I've just positioned them here so it goes lighter to darker, and it was really fun to get that kind of ombre effect. A lot of snails in nature, the smallest, the most innermost part of their twisty curly shell is often a little bit darker than the rest. I imagine that this is like older shell and this is newer shell. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but it was fun to kind of mimic that with the different shades. So I've got a couple more. For this one, I've gone full on fantasy. This is not any realistic looking snail at all. The lighter pink that I used for the body is from my Rainbow Brights bundle. The weird blobby antenna are from the Gingham Play bundle, and all of the pieces for the shell are from the Little Stripes bundle. And it was fun on this one to keep turning the direction of the stripes to make more clearly defined lines between them, even though I was using the same fabric for all of them. And the background is from the Warm Neutrals Batiks fabric bundle. And I've got one more. I've really been enjoying doing some black and white animals. There was a time when lots of the baby illustrations, baby nursery kind of products that you could get had these bright black and white prints, because that is something that newborns can see really clearly. And so this really reminds me of that a lot, except that instead of the white background that all of those would have had, I have chosen a bright green background. This is from the Batik Rainbow fabric bundle. And then all of these are prints from a black and whites bundle that I sell in my shop that is an assortment of blacks and whites. You're not necessarily going to get these prints, but each bundle has a range of some prints that are more black than white, and some prints that are more white than black, and some that are more in the middle. So you'll get a range of lights to darks, even though they are all black and white prints. So total fantasy version on this one, and I love black and white and this bright green together. So that is how you do the snail pattern, the current pattern in the Funny Faces Quilt Block of the Month Club. I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and I'll see you next month.